Hello VC. Something slightly different than usual. A sort of tutorial rant. I don't know, you decide. Lately I've been thinking about this topic for quite a lot. Watching all these VC vinyl community videos for the past 2 years. And you know, there's all these videos by authority figures telling newbies or others how to, what to, where to, etc. So, what should you buy? Where should you buy? This constantly puzzles me a little bit. I've been guilty of that myself. I've done a few top videos, but yeah, you be the judge of that. What really puzzles me is these videos that goes 10 records you must have to start a collection, basically. They say it in different ways, but that's basically the gist of it. Like, these records are essentials. Essential according to who, where, and when? That's the question. Because the VC is not homogeneous. There's people from like 12, 13, 15 years up to 70 years and plus. There's no right and wrong, but just to think about that. Usually you say that something is classic after 25 years or so. So for someone who's 60 plus, a record that is a classic has been a classic for quite a long time now. Like, imagine all these Led Zeppelin records, Pink Floyd records, they've been classics for over 30 years now. I remember when I was a teen and I was introduced to this record. Wait a second. This record. I was aware of this record 11 years after it was released. It seemed a long time back then. It seemed like ancient. So I got a reissue of this, like a repress from the late 80s or so. I played the shit out of that copy and I treated myself with an original copy of that a couple of years ago. But for the longest time I was very reverential of this. This was something from the past that was mythical, like beyond criticism in a way. Closer by Joy Division. But that was a classic, probably way more so for people who lived by this record back when it was released. This was released in '91 when I was 14. I bought this when it was released. This is a classic. But I was the target, aged and target for this record, even if it wasn't meant as a marketing thing, but there was a lot of marketing around that record when it was released. By the label, of course. So this is a classic for me. I understand this, I understand the context because I lived it. Is it a classic for people who are older than me or younger than me? Yes, apparently they say so, but I guess it's more like a historical record. It's an important record. It changed a lot of things for the music business and for the ears of the people who were exposed to it at the right age. Now it's just a record for most people that is to be respected or not, liked or not, but that has that you need to have an opinion about. You don't need that. It's okay if you just don't like it and don't respect that. Who cares? It has significant value, but it doesn't need to have any effect on you, and you don't need to position yourself towards it or against it. You don't need to own it. You don't need to force yourself to like it if you don't like it. That's another thing I hear so much in the VC. I tried and tried and tried, and I didn't succeed. I didn't manage to get the brilliance of Coldplay, whoever. But more seriously, who cares about what you like or not? This record just playing now. Stephen Melinder, Temperature Drop, Cool Down. It's an EP. Stephen Melinder was the singer of Cabaret Voltaire. Cabaret Voltaire is a hugely influential band, cult band. They never really had any hits. They're underground, but they are respected. And this is the single the EP that came with the album, the one and sole album Stephen Melinder put out by himself. It's a great album, and it's a great EP. I got this recently. I had the album for 20 years. It's just that it was a cult record and an appreciated record by the people who knew about it and who knew its historical significance. But there was only one pressing of this, if I remember correctly. So it's not like there was any consideration of which pressing I'm getting. You were aware of it, you liked it, you bought it. There was no looking for the right pressing or whatever nonsense. When I got this record, John Coltrane, Ascension, I got this because, the first one at least, because I got the first pressing of it, the original one, stereo, but still, because I liked it. I actually don't like John Coltrane. It's not that I don't like him personally, I had nothing against him. He was dead 10, 12 years before I was even born, so who cares? He certainly doesn't care what I think about him. But he's one of the most respected names in jazz music. People collect him, people decide to confront themselves with his music even when they don't like it or don't understand it, which is good, I guess, in a way. But I don't need to do that, and no one needs to do that. I bought this because I liked it. My dislike of his music is not because of how avant-garde and unlistenable he is, because some people think he is. These are the two most brutal, noisy, chaotic recordings of his. I don't think so. I enjoy these, which is also maybe why I enjoy less the others. But the main issue I have with him is basically he's a tenor saxophone player, and I don't really like that instrument. Never have. Doesn't mean I can't appreciate it, but I like the sound of the soprano so much. Steve Lacy. I don't know. It's dumb probably, but I got the original US pressing of this and the original UK pressing of the second version of this. Both came out around the same time. Coltrane wasn't happy with the initial release of this. He had another recording of the same session, a different one, like basically a different take, and he preferred the other one, so he convinced the label to release the second one. They're different. It's the same tracks, and it's from the same sessions, the same personal. And would I have paid a lot because there were originals? I don't know. These are the ones I found, and I had the money, and it was affordable. On the other hand, this I only got recently. This is a Stone Cold classic, My Bloody Valentine Loveless. I got this when it was released on CD. Back then, CDs were sometimes more expensive than the vinyl version, sometimes the other way around. In this case, I guess the vinyl pressing was also more elusive back then for this one, With Nirvana, not really. But for this one, anyways, I could have gotten a vinyl version of this a long time ago. Reissues came in the past few years, very decent ones. But I had built an emotional connection with this record since day one. This record was born to me when this record was actually born to the world. So I was aware of how it influenced the music, other bands, how it was instrumental in the shift from indie shoegaze towards electronic-based ambient. And so I wanted an original because this record has been with me since the beginning. It's dumb. It's only in my head, I guess. But I had built a strong enough connection that I wanted an original. And these are pricey. So I waited till I got a good deal. And it happened. It always happens, or most of the time. It's not like a rare record. It's an expensive record. But they pressed thousands of this when it was released. Not tens of thousands, I guess, but still. This was still on an independent label, Creation, 1991 as well, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, contrary to this record that we're currently playing, Maggie Payne. Maggie Payne is a female experimental music composer. This is a reissue of her album Crystal on Aguirre. Gatefold, very nice pressing, very nice edition. This came out on the US label Lovely, which I love, and I collect this label. I think I have all the releases of that label, original pressings. There's only one pressing of these. Until recently, some got reissued because they were so elusive and getting so expensive. This. I wanted this record badly because I wanted to listen to it. And I couldn't find any copies of the original, let alone affordable. But no, I couldn't find any affordable ones, let alone any copies. For, I mean, if I'm patient enough, I will find one. But like, okay, I'll get the reissue. It makes no sense waiting for the music to come to me when I know I can experience it and enjoy it already. So in this case, I had no emotional connection with the record prior to, like when it was born. I wasn't even, yeah, I was born when it was released in the early 80s, but still. So this, I don't really mind getting a reissue. If I find a good deal on the original, because I have a connection with the label, maybe I will get it, but it's never going to be a priority. But this is not really a classic. This is a classy record and a very cool one, but it's not like this. This Selected Ambient Works Volume 2, the Aphex Twin. Selected Ambient Works Volume 1, released a few years prior to that on RNS, is not really an ambient record, it's a techno record. This one is really an ambient record. It's kind of like a modern Eric Satie, even if Eric Satie is timeless, so talking about modern version of him is a little bit questionable. This is a triple LP of pure ambient music, and anyone from my generation who was mildly interested in electronic music during the 90s knows about this record. This is the true definition of a classic, and this is a almost 30 years old record, so it is a classic. When I mean, I understand that people who are older than my generation, I mean 10 years older than me or more, most of them wouldn't be aware of that. Most of them who are music lovers would probably be aware of the name Aphex Twin nowadays. And they would be told this is a classic. Okay, I like buying classics, I like blah blah blah. what does it mean for a record to be a classic if you don't have... What does it mean to own a classic if you don't have a personal connection to it? A personal love, gut feeling for it? In my opinion, very little. So all these videos telling you you need to own these 10 records because they are classic rock's classics. If you really need an authority figure telling you what you should investigate. My generation didn't have the access to internet we now have. So everyone before me and up to me and maybe a few years after me, we had to do the work ourselves. We needed to buy magazines, books, go to the record stores. You couldn't investigate music history by yourself on Discogs and YouTube. That didn't exist. Nowadays, you don't need any authority figure. You just need to find an entry point and jump, and trust your own ears. When I found this record, Anthony Manning, in the dollar bin in a second-hand shop in Paris in the late 90s on her dial. This is a record from 92, 3, 4. I remember putting it on the turntable, and the people in the record store looking at me with disgust. And I respected these people. I knew them, I knew them, and I liked them. I liked this as well. So I bought it for nothing. This got reissued as a double LP gatefold deluxe version I think 2 years ago, and got sold out very quickly. This is very unique ambient with a very unique composition technique from Anthony Manning. There's no one like him, and you either get it or you don't. You either love it or you don't. But really, to get this, the main and only reason should be because you love it. This record I'm gonna show next. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, this. Sahib Shihab and the Jeff Gilson unit on on Futura Records. This is the original pressing. This got reissued recently. This is an expensive jazz record, like spiritual free jazz. Until a few years ago, if you were aware of that and wanted to hear it, the only way was to actually track down an original and buy it for whatever price you found it, and that you could afford, obviously. It's a great record. Futura is a label I have a connection with as well. Admittedly, also one of these abstract, stupid connections. I'm not connected to them in any other way than emotional, and it's a good connection though. But my point is that this got reissued recently on the Souffle Continu label, a very good French shop, record store and label, and they're all like, basically it's almost identical cover, and they have like an obi with hype, blurb, etc. So you see it's like the Souffle Continu collection, which has become kind of like an authority figure in itself for European jazz, outsider music, prog rock, etc. So much so that people buy releases on that label, that reissue label, solely because it's on that reissue label, an authority figure. What does that mean? It's fine. I mean, I personally find these records good, brilliant, interesting, etc. So it's good that people confront themselves with good stuff like that. But why couldn't you just privilege trusting your own taste? solely, constantly. I guess it's not totally realistic all the time, but it's so much more joyful, and you get much more satisfaction to find stuff you like and later find out that there's a context, there's an appreciation for these by others later on, sometimes much later on. But building your own taste, your own ear, your own decisions, building your own collection and not someone else's collection, reproducing someone else's collection. I think that's the point of being a music lover, and the specific kind we're talking about, people who collect records, who buy records, physical ones yet, and who have opinions on the object in a way. This record was issued in 2000. This is called Music to Play in the Dark 2. Chord is this industrial band that has existed since the early mid-80s, and I've been following them since the early mid-90s. Yeah, and for the longest time, if you were into that kind of music, you were considered like as a goth by most people, because most of their music has a dark edge, and they were associated with other bands that are also closer to that. By no means this is goth music. This is almost like a krautrock psychedelic electronic album. But it took the Wire magazine in the UK to start writing about this music with respect, to write seriously about them and some other of their peers, for opinions to shift, opinions within the people who need authority figures. But they had lots of fans before that, lots. This you had to be in the know though, because I remember they started their own label and you had to basically subscribe to their newsletter, so they would inform you that you could like buy this on a mail order from them to get this, which is what I did. It was the first volume and the second one. This is like a $700 record. So, and this is the record that actually, this one and volume 1, that got them accepted as something much more interesting than just a goth band. And unfortunately, this didn't get reissued right away. They had other priorities, putting out new music, and then they both died, and the rights were like kind of in a limbo. And this is getting reissued this month, this week, I guess, for the first time officially. And it's a big deal. This record is a little bit special as well. It's like a 3-side LP with this milky pearl color, with the 4th side being an etching of like moon surface or something like that. The reissue is doing a fine job with that. I think they do. I haven't seen it, but I think, yeah, they have an etching on a similar etching. I don't know if it's the same or if it's a reproduction as close as possible. The thing that struck me though is that the label who reissues this, on their social media, they've been hyping the color variants. They put out several versions, because there's crazy collectors, of course, who will buy several versions of the reissue. But they were hyping some of these colors as first printing. Get the first printing while it lasts. When you do a reissue of a record, basically you buy the reissuing rights for a certain time that is contractual. So until that contract elapses, you have the right to press it over and over and over and over, unless there's a specific clause of the maximum amount of records you're allowed to press. Which means that when that contract expires, if they don't renew it, another label might buy the reissuing rights and do a new version of this reissue, which will also have a first press. But there's only one first press of this record, which is the first original press. Which brings me to all these videos about these reissues, where you see some fancy reissue version costing way more than a previous reissue that is widely available in the second-hand market at a much lesser price. Sometimes the original record will be less expensive, sometimes way less expensive. This is my personal opinion, that these fancy reissues are a fad, in the sense that unless there's a objective higher sound quality to them, which is always debatable to a certain degree, there are pressings that are widely known as being bad. That's true, but there will always be only one original. There will always be new reissue, new pressings of records that have become classics, either to the mainstream or to a niche. Well, always, maybe not always. While when I get these records, John Fahey's been around since the 60s, early 60s. This is an original on Tacoma of guitar, the volume 4. This is Blind Joe Deaf. This is not the original pressing. This is on the original label, but this is a later repress. I love John Fahey. I get all his records. I got them all, I believe. But I don't need to have original of all of them. And there's continuously new ones coming out. Whenever there's a new fad around his name, whenever there's a new generation that embraces him, discovers him, and craves for new pressings, new editions, new etc. But just to say that I don't always need to have a first pressing or original pressing with the stuff that I actually collect, because sometimes, as I explained before, you don't necessarily have the biggest emotional connection with the actual records. You have it more with the music. Sometimes you have it with the actual record, and then it becomes something quite different. But really paying a lot of money for a repress of a record you could buy in another way, in another format that is only rare because it's a rare pressing. I mean, this is a rare pressing because it's an original pressing. This is not a rare pressing because it's a rare record. The record is, you can find different versions of that. This is a rare pressing and a rare record. What does that mean? Let me put some music in the background until we get on with this. Let's see. Yeah. Haven't listened to this in a while. The oscillation. This is like 10, 12 years old. So this is an expensive record, but there's a reason, because it's a rare record. This is from Nurse's Wound, a band that is not widely known, that is quite underground, even if they have become cult and the name is even known by people who not necessarily know this kind of music. Ambient, industrial, dada, surrealistic, ambient, crowd. So why 20 here? Because they only made 25 copies of it, and this is number 20. It's a double LP pack with original covers, art by the artist himself who painted these, and You can find a 60-minute long version of this digitally on Bandcamp. You can find a CD version of that, quite limited, 500 copies I think they did. But if you want this on vinyl, 72-minute long version, the only place to find it, the only place to find any version of this on vinyl is here. And this was extremely expensive record. But this was released by the label, that is the band, by the band. So, and they've had quite, they built confidence and trust with their fan base that, like, yeah, this will not get reissued. If they say so, it won't be. At least not while he's alive. And yeah, it also makes this quite cool and fun to collect. A band that actually puts out cool editions, limited ones, that are not just like a vanity edition. It's maybe a vanity release, you could say. If they only release it 25 copies, why even release it, you could say. Well, they do the digital version, but the point is that if you're starting to collect records, or if you've been doing that for a few years and you've been watching all these VC videos telling you where, how, when, who, especially the who, how fun is it to get the MTF version of this jazz classic, this classic rock classic, when you could spend the same money on stuff that, if you take a chance and invest in the present or in your own taste, will be ultimately way more rewarding, because you become also a supporter of the artist. You become a trailblazer in a way. Recently, in the past few years, I've been interested in folk music from Hungary. This is a band, Musikas, I don't know how to pronounce it, that have really blown me away. I never heard anyone really hype it. I heard it just looking, trying stuff, and this caught my ear. And I thought, this is good. This is really good. This is cheap. No one cares about this. When I start to get these, of course you start to find other people who are interested in this. But right now, this is still a very, very small scene of collectors of this specific niche. But who knows? These records are mostly worth like between 5 and 15 bucks tops right now. How long will there be copies available online of this? How and when? Yeah, so eventually, if my enthusiasm is not just mine, but like if there's some kind of zeitgeist, why do I like this right now? Why do I discover this right now? Is it just random? To a certain degree, but I don't believe that. I believe that the more you're interested in music and the more you're looking for new paths, challenging paths, certain new paths show themselves to you and others around the same time. This is the same thing with Rai. Lots of Rai reissues right now. Not 10 years ago. Could have happened 10 years ago. I wasn't interested in that 10 years ago. So there's a certain level of zeitgeist. Right now you can get this for nothing. And there's no reissues of this. Some of them have like Hungarian pressings and maybe a US or a European pressing as well. But most of them don't. And yeah. This that I showed in my latest stream, Journey into Space, Trevor Wishart, Part 1 and 2. There's no reissue of that. This is this was released in, I believe in maybe early 70s, late 60s, 72. So okay, so this is a 50-year-old record. This goes to another point. Sorry for the directionless aspect, the nature of this video, but there's also this thing that I hear often in videos that also puzzles me, like waiting for the reissue. Don't pay the high prices, wait for the reissue. Well, why would I want to pay for the high price? Because I'm aware of the existence of the record and I like it and I want to enjoy it. When do I enjoy it? Now, when I discover the record and when I discover I enjoy it. So should I really wait for an hypothetical reissue in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years? Maybe because you have no choice, you can't afford the one original pressing of it. Why can't you afford it? That's your situation. Either you can't afford it, either you don't have the patience. Many respectable reasons, but really there's something to be said about the nature of the instant, of the moment. Music is a volatile commodity, at least in its appreciation sense. There's records I liked when I was 15, 20 that I don't care for now. So if I waited now to get them, I wouldn't have gotten what I got from them back then, which is still something I cherish and that was instrumental in my development for the most part. I'm not talking about the stuff that is sometimes some people either are ashamed of or call guilty pleasures or so. I'm talking about like maybe some punk rock from the 90s that like was relevant back then, but now there's other ones that are more relevant from the same area. But yeah, never underestimate the value of the moment. When you love the music is when you love the music. There's no certainty about the future, and sometimes it's a pain in the ass having to track down the record, paying higher prices than you pay usually for the records, but sometimes it's worth it. I'm not saying that you should do it always, but often it will be rewarding, and there's many other reasons I could go into, but it's not always relevant to go into so much details. One thing though that you can do if you trust yourself and you trust your moment is check new stuff. This record came out 2 years ago. Maxwell Sterling. He's a bass player, composer, multi-instrumentist. This was released, they did I think 300 copies of this. It's a really good experimental electronic music album, which is quite easy on the ear. It also features a Moki Sherry cover. Moki Sherry, wife of Don Cherry. It also features Don Cherry on one of the tracks, with some recordings that are exclusive to this album that were never used in any other way. So great music with some fun connections with someone who's highly regarded and highly hyped right now. This is still cheap and under the radar, and it's good music. Well, if you don't like it, you don't like it, but isn't it more fun to get a record like that if you like it than to get an expensive reissue of a classic rock record you probably already have or you can get in many other ways? I've been hyping this record for the past few weeks. Also Leila Bordreuil, also bass player, drone. This came out as a cassette last year and was finally issued on vinyl, I believe 500 copies probably of this. This is still cheap, but like this is so good. This is, if you like the collectability, the kind of fun of betting on getting something you like, but also getting something that you think that will be desirable. This is this kind of record, and when you get them when they're new, it's like less than 20 bucks. And when you get these records that are totally obscure, this is an Australian record of kind of avant-garde rock influenced by Terry Riley, Drone, etc. It's only 100 copies pressing. Yeah, it's even numbered. And it's not a special version of it, it's the only pressing. So this is bound to be rare. Is it bound to be in demand? Maybe not. Who cares? I liked it. And it's fun to have. It's much more fun than to get like a limited edition record of Adele. 10,000 copies that you can anyway get in many other formats or whatever. So I guess my general point is that there's so many ways to look at it, and there's a couple of ways that are getting the most amount of attention in the VC, or building a kind of authority figure complex, both ways, by the way. I'm not saying that the people who do that do it intentionally. It's kind of also a reproduction of a system. This is very Edgar Morin-esque, like the interconnectivity that the result influence the production and vice versa. I just find that after, how long has it been? Like 10 years, 12 years, the VC? I've only been participating 2 years now, barely. But it's striking me how conservative it can be unintentionally, and not necessarily just in the kind of music the VC is addressing. Of course, it's mostly concerned with Northern American music, because it's mostly composed of Northern American people, so fine. But when you think you have a diverse taste because you listen to jazz, folk, country, rock and roll, hip-hop, Northern American kinds of music, well, let's put it that way. The word is not that big, but it's much bigger than that. So, sorry for the looseness of this rant, or these thoughts about record collecting, about the VC, and about, yeah, you've seen the video if you came this far. I just think that there's enough platforms to find music by yourself before you get tainted by other people's authority on what is right and what is wrong. To be fair, very few people say what is wrong. More people are more positive and saying what is right, what is good in exit. But that's still problematic when you see that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, because people who do that kind of video create other people who create the same video over and over. Suddenly you start to believe that this is a classic. Yeah, this was a classic for that person. It doesn't need to be a classic for me. I don't need, it's not like the body of history that you need to learn in school to pass the exam. There's no exam to pass in the VC. No exam. No one will hold it against you that you don't have any records by the Rolling Stones, by Bob Dylan, by Tom Petty, by whoever. I mean, cool that you have them if you like them, but don't force yourself to like them. Don't get something because you respect it. Life is too short. Money is too is too little. Like, and it could seem that I'm preaching my own choir in a way, but I really hope I'm not. I really think I'm not. I really think that even with my own videos, like, please, by all means, like, don't take my word for it. Don't buy something because you believe I'm an authority figure on anything. listen to it. Always listen to the stuff before you buy it. It's very rare that you can't have access to it on YouTube, on Bandcamp, or on Spotify nowadays. So if people tell you this is a must-have, but you don't like it, don't get it. Sometimes maybe you're not ready for it. Maybe you need to grow into it through appreciating other stuff before, which means that you don't need to have it right now. So go at your own pace and trust the people you want to trust because you have a reason to trust them that is personal, that is not a power dynamic between this person or what this person represents. And I guess that's what I had to say. So until next time, where I'll play more music in a less philosophical, political way, enjoy a few notes, noises of the oscillation, a great underappreciated shoegaze noise band. Or not. don't take my word as an order. Do you, and just make the VC a fun place, a diverse place, and try to be part of what makes it a richer place as well, whatever that means. Alright, that was Stunt Rock Confusion channel. If you like this, by all means write a comment. We can further discuss it if you want. You can also discuss with me more privately on Instagram, the same name. And if you disagree, the same goes. But I hope this was somewhat meaningful a little bit, and that will get to further the discussion, or not, but that at least I'll see more videos that really preach that openness. Bye.